Welcome to the Model Rail Replacement Podcast, helping you get to your onward journey. A friendly service that helps you get from A to B, or probably nowhere at all.
Hello and welcome to the Model Rail Replacement Podcast. It's episode 12. It's the show we sometimes call MERP, and I am your host, James, and with me is producer and co-host,
Sam. Hello.
Hello, Sam. How are you?
I'm really good. I've had one of those weird weeks where I've actually been working so much in my real life job that it's the hobby has taken a bit of a back step. But Point Motors finally turned up this week as well. And under the recommendation of the MTB MP1 Point Motors, you've got some coming your way soon, I believe, as well.
Yes. I've seen you demonstrate yours and the issues I was having with the Seep Point Motors. They're not a bad starter point motor, I'd like to point out, because I know our friends at Cage Master listen. So, but they're not bad for a starter point motor. But yeah, I wanted something a little bit more heavy duty for what I have planned. So seeing you use yours, I was like, yeah, I'm going to invest in them. I'd already done that with the Cobalt Digital IP point motors, and I'm really happy with them. They're also a really good investment. So I was like, you know what? Once you've bought them, that's it. It's done. They're bought. And if you take your layout down or redesign it, you can always reuse these things. And they usually have like lifetime warranties and stuff on them, don't they? So yeah, I'm the same. Waiting for mine, and then I can continue with my layout build, which is I'm not going to lie, it's almost there.
I know. So I've been obviously chatting to you in the background, and I've seen some of the hobby updates that you've been sending through to me, which I greatly appreciate, by the way. And I've been very excited. So since last week's episode, how far have you got?
Right. Well, so I had a bit of a struggle week, I think, and then it all started to fall together, and the track is down as far as the swing gate, and that is the final piece where the track needs to go, and then I just need to wire it up, and I should be able to run some trains. The only problem is I've got to the swing gate, and my plan for the fiddle yard at that end involved using a set track curved point.
Mm-hmm.
Firstly, I don't like these points and try to avoid using them. However, my design requires two of them. The one at the other end seems to be okay through testing. Doesn't seem to have caused me any issues so far. But this one, I put it on the outside track, not thinking that it's actually a second radius curve. So when I come round to the swing gate to start laying track and checking clearances for Mark III and Mark IV coaches, I realised that the inside track was going to end up being a radius 1 curve. As we all know, is a no-no for big engines. So, yeah, I was a bit stuck for a bit. So I took a few points out, had a little play around, relayed things, and I think I've now actually got a plan that's going to work out even better for me. Which also means I'm going to have to buy some more point motors because this includes the addition of extra points. But yeah, I've come up with a plan to relay it, and I should now have some loco storage at that end of the yard, so I can swap locos round as I plan to do at the other end of the layout. So I can run it in a operating session of a train. A loco brings a train in, and then another loco hooks up the other end and takes the train back out, kind of style. And I also think I can squeeze at least one or two more sidings in for 2 3-car DMUs in a wasted space that can now be utilized. So I'm very excited about it. I'm just waiting for a set of points to arrive in the post to see if this will all work. So yeah, with that sorted then, it's quite a long episode this week because we have Dan from Various Multiple Units in an absolutely fantastic interview. You're going to absolutely love it, I guarantee it. But before that, it's time to talk about the news, and there's a lot of news this week, so let's get on with it. It seems the force really is strong with you, as you predicted a Curious Scale announcement was coming, but not only was it wagons, as of this Friday, as we record, and by time people listen to me Monday, so we should know, there's going to be a diesel to be announced by Curious Scales. That's quite exciting. Any speculation what you think it might be? I haven't actually checked out social media. All I know is the screenshot you sent me, so I've not been seeing froth.
So they haven't, unlike last time where they sort of dropped a few hints, this time they have only given us the speculation that it is a diesel. So looking at what they've already done, and I mean, my hope is it's a 73/9. Let's be real. That is my big hope. Will it be, because that is technically a diesel loco because it's had all the electric capacity removed from it. I think that's hoping too much. What we have to look at what sort of things we're missing from our diesel era stuff, and are we talking new diesel? Are we talking old diesel? Because there's a lot of things that it could be. I mean, they've not really done a southern loco yet.
No, see, yeah, I'm the 73.9 is a possibility in the fact that it would go with their coaches that they sell, and they intend to bring out another batch of coaches. So if you want people to buy them, that have a smaller layout, you can go, well, why don't you buy our 73.9 and model the Highland line and just buy 4 of our coaches? So you never know. I don't want to get your hopes up, but I'm just saying, from a marketing point of view, that's something I would consider.
Plus, you've got the ability that you can do that with the Network Rail and the GBRF variants of it as well.
Yeah, that's it. Also, there's that lovely new Network Southeast livery 73 that's was it Kent and East Sussex Railway, I believe GBRF named it.
It is, yeah. Which does look stunning, and it's really nice to know that on the main line there is a Network Southeast loco sort of roaming, doing normal day jobs rather than sort of tours. So that is really good.
Indeed, yes, indeed. And I had to walk away from the person that commented on Instagram that said, I don't think NSC suits shoeboxes very well. I'm going to leave you there, sir.
Looking at the fact that they've not really done any southern, I think it could be, highly likely be, either a 73/9, because that would fall under diesel category, or maybe a 33, because currently the only people who do 33s are Helian.
Now, the Helium 33 is a very, very nice model.
Hmm.
I thought maybe the 33. The Helium one's been out for some time, although it's not too bad. But yeah, it's you kind of sort of have to work out. There's not a massive amount of diesels to pick, but it could be one of the older pioneering diesels, something that's no longer running. It's very easy to fall in the trap of just going with what runs around today. But again, marketing wise, I suppose you'd want to maximize your profits by making a model that you can put in the latest colors. But then you kind of got to look at it and go, well, Bachmann have retooled a 20. Everyone's doing a 31.
Everyone's done a 37.
Yeah, everyone's doing a 37. 46, yeah. 47 is obviously covered, as well by Bachmann.
Yeah, it's Bachmann, Hornby, and Gagemaster / Helian. They all do a 47. So, I mean, without trying to saturate certain things within the hobby, we're looking either at something really, really obscure or something where there's not many versions of it. And I know Dapol do the 73. Hornby have a very old Lima chassis and body 73 version available. Helian do the 33. So they're the two that strike me as they're common enough that they could sell a fair few of them without it being completely obscure. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's not. I mean, they could really surprise us and come out with an Acura scale class, Acura scale HST.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it could be something that actually is already in the market, but they're just going to do their take on it. It could be an 08 shunter. It's very, very hard to guess at the moment, particularly because there's nothing crying out that needs retooling. I think is the best way to do it. But then again, we could just be going the complete wrong direction. It could be a DMU because this is diesel locomotive, I think, as well. That so we're just guessing at diesels themselves, but they could be venturing into their DMU market. We just have to wait and see on that one, I suppose.
Yeah. We're obviously recording this on the Thursday, so by the time this comes out, we'll all already know. But my hope's the 73/9, simply because I want one, and out of the two, that's the one I really like because I already have 3 Helian 33s. However, seeing Acura scale do a 33, I would be quite happy with that as well.
It would be very interesting to see their take on it. I think 33 is probably the one I'd go for. That's going to be where I'm putting my money. I think a class 33. That's what I'm going to say. But yeah, you shall know when you listen today, as it would be Monday when you're listening. But for us, it's still in the future. So we'll just have to wait and see and talk about it next week, I suppose. Right. Yeah. As I say, we are really taking out time today, and we've got a lot to get through. So,
Sorry,
that's all good.
we've got the problem of that we're coming onto this episode with a long interview. Basically, when I was editing Dan's interview, there's so much good stuff in it that I couldn't sort of trim certain parts down, and the content was so good. So I've decided we're going to go for this longer interview process based on the content that's in it. I think it's really useful for everyone to hear what Dan has to say. So
Conversation with Dan. So yeah, this one will be a long episode, I think. But we kind of broke the barrier last week. I think the last one was an hour and 20, wasn't it? So
it was. We're just getting them. My initial wish of making them an hour long episodes, I think, is just screwed up for the meantime. Maybe we're just out of practice and we just talk too much now. Another announcement that was made this morning. So yesterday and today, there's a lot of D-Day celebrations going on, and Rapido teased yesterday about something that was quite heavily involved within the D-Day sort of era. And James, without trying to spoil it for you, have you seen what the locomotive is?
So they had a little leak some while back, much against Churchill's wishes, I'm sure, for this sort of theme. But it was very exciting to hear of the leak, and then obviously today they have announced officially that they are doing the S160 USA locomotive. And for me, I am very excited about this because I really do love the aesthetic of American style locomotives. So I was, over the moon to hear that they were going to be making it. And also, I was like, I have a Heritage Railway planned. It's going to be perfect for my layout. And there's so many colours coming as well, isn't there? I think
you've got that sort of the black and silver, which is quite stereotypical around American steam locomotives of this ilk. The one I'm most excited about. So I used to work at Borden Army Barracks before it shut down, which was linked with Longmoor military barracks. They're very, very close. Used to do some things between the two barracks, but I used to run on my lunch breaks around the old Longmoor military railway lines, and the commandant of the barracks found out that I like trains and got me the Longmoor military railway book. You know, the location books you've mentioned. I can't remember off the top of my head what they're called, but I've got like the Chichester. That's it. I've got the Chichester to Portsmouth and the Portsmouth to Southampton versions. But he got me the Longmoor military railway one on there, and Rails are doing the Longmoor military railway special. That is a very nice blue, sort of like a blue and red color scheme as their Rails exclusive version, and that really excited me because I used to work there. I used to run the lines that used to be part of it. Longmoor military railway is always somewhere where, whilst steam's not my forte, I do like the idea of it.
Yeah, it looks absolutely gorgeous, the rendering of that color. So I'm very excited for these, but I think I may just have to order one because they are at the high end of the price range, shall we say.
Yeah, I think the price is what's putting me off it.
Yeah, but I think it's because it does look such a complex design, and it's probably because it's so niche, it's probably sort of warranted that sort of high end ticket, maybe. But I will certainly be ordering at least one because I think they're absolutely gorgeous. It's just deciding which color I want. But thank you very much for Rapido for bringing that one to the market, because I think that was a missing loco that we needed. So
it is specifically in 00 as well. Obviously, being an American loco, it's the sort of thing you could find in HO, but it's coming out in a 00 version of this loco, so it will match the locomotives that you're running. So anybody who is modelling anything that would include this particular loco, then hopefully it'll give you something nice to run around.
I believe Rocco do it in HO.
Oh, do they?
Yes, I'll have to double check on that on that brand. But yeah, I think it's Rocco do it. So yeah, you can get it in HO, but obviously it's not the right scale for us in OO. So this coming, as you say, the slightly larger scale, but the more narrow gauge track, as we're all victims of. This is a first. Well, as we say, it's a long one this week, and we have our interview with Dan from Various Multiple Units. And this is, as I said, an excellent conversation that we had a few weeks ago with Dan. So without further ado, we're going to take a short break and come back for our Guest of the Week interview.
Look at that! You see that there? The super shiny diesel loco that's coming this way. Yeah, I see it. Isn't it beautiful? So fresh, so clean, like it's straight out of the box. I mean, yeah, it's nice, but I prefer it to have a used look to it. In an ideal world, that would be nice. But I'm sure the owner doesn't have the confidence, skill or time to undertake such a job. Then why don't they just send it to Emperor's Path? Emperor's Path? Yeah. SBJ has years of experience in model railways and wargaming, the ability to meet your weathering needs, and works with you during the whole process to ensure the project is how you want it, not like it's come through a factory. Come on, that must cost a fortune. Not really. He offers different levels of weathering at really affordable prices. I've got my whole fleet weathered by him. My loco's got the full treatment, whilst my rolling stock just a dusting with the airbrush, and it looks really authentic. I might just get a quote. How do I contact him? You get him on Instagram at emperors_path, by Facebook, Emperor's Path, or emperorspathcontact@gmail.com. Emperor's Path Weathering. If it's not filthy, let's change that.
And we are back, and today we have another guest interview. This week we have Dan from Various Multiple Units. Hello, Dan. How are you?
Hey guys, what's up? What's up? How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Sort of been enjoying the week. Had some time off work. Been doing a bit of modelling, so all been well. And yourself? Have you been keeping busy?
I feel like sometimes I haven't stopped. Yeah, it's been really busy, and if I'm not working on stuff for myself, I'm working on stuff for other people. So there's no rest for the wicked, none at all. So it's all good. It's all good.
So what we like to do when we have a guest on the show is just let you talk about yourself for a little bit, your modelling, layouts, etc., and how you got into the hobby.
Well, that's the interesting bit because I don't actually have a layout. As you may have seen from some of my social media posts, I tend to hijack Latchmere, NSC Latchmere's layout a lot for a lot of my posts because I don't actually have one. The reason for that is I've moved around a couple of times, and I've been living in I live in an apartment, so there's not a lot of room, and I can't quite downscale to N-gauge, so I don't actually have a layout at the moment. But I've been building quite a lot of stock, so the aspiration is one day to have some layout, or at least be a member of an MRC that I can run all that stuff on. So in the meantime, I just go and take it and show it to everyone, and yeah. So I focus predominantly on building units.
Very cool. Yes. So people listening aren't aware, you can be found as Various Multiple Units on Instagram, and the photos of your work absolutely amazing. And especially because it's such a small model railway market in regards to ready to run. To see the stuff that you can produce, it's just absolutely fantastic.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I'll be honest with you. It stems from the frustration of being 10, 11, 12 years old and not being able to model what I see every day. And I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that model what they're used to or what they grew up with or what is in front of them on a day-to-day basis. And so if you live in any part of the country, I'm sure you model what you mirror, what you mirror around you. And I just couldn't do that. It was never available to me. And the nearest thing I could get to anything that would possibly be local to me that wasn't a diesel or an electric locomotive was a Lima Class 117 DMU. That was it. And it was, don't get me wrong, it was a great model, noisy, but great model. But it was the only multiple unit that you could get your hands on, or a Class 104, 105? Is it a 105? No, 110, Class 110, Hornby Class 110. And we never got those down south. So yeah, I was frustrated. I grew up as a really frustrated teenager, and as a consequence, that's where it stemmed from. The only way you could have what you saw around you was to go out and build it yourself. So that's what I did, and that's pretty much where it comes from. That's where Various Multiple Units comes from. It was a frustration as a child that manifested itself in, right, if I can't buy it, I'm going to go and make it. And ironically enough, Pete, who you'll know as Ennessy Latchmere, we went to school together. We met each other when we were 10 years old. And we both were mad about trains then. We used to go train spotting around central London and on our network day travel cards, and go and visit all the terminuses. And we were fortunate enough to both be able to get a couple of Lima Mark 1s. And we decided that we were going to, our first multiple unit we could ever build was a GLV, which was kind of ironic because obviously it's the Gatwick Express's 40th birthday at the moment. But yeah, we built a Gatwick Express using some Lima Mark 1s and Kellogg's Cornflakes box. And we basically built the cab front on the front of a Lima Mark 1 mail van. And it looks freaking awful. But when you're 10 years old, you just look at it and think, yeah, we've done it. We've finally got an EMU. So yeah, that's pretty much where we started, and that's where it all came from.
That is such a great story. I love that, and the pain of the multiple units. It's got to be worse because I think the Lima 117 was eventually they sort of destroyed that tooling to make the 121, and that was sort of the end of the 117, wasn't it? So that makes things even worse. Well, yeah, I love that story, and yeah, and it's great to see that start into modelling. And like you say, it's the early days not the best, but nowadays, I mean, you've definitely advanced from the cornflake packet.
Yeah, well, I have gone back every now and again, dabbled with a bit of with cardboard, but no, it's all plasticard and brass etch sides now. So yeah, things have moved on a little bit. Yeah.
And it's an inspiring story because it shows the people out there that don't have the confidence or a bit nervous about it that we all start somewhere, and it's we can all improve on our game, and that's the only way you can do it. So that's awesome. So let's get into the main part then. We are going to move on to the questions, and as you know by now, we have the same format of questions for every guest appearing on the show. So I'll start with our usual. What's your favourite? And I'm sure I could never guess. Steam, electric, or diesel?
Well, it's got to be electric. I am 100% electric, and don't get me wrong, I love diesel and I love steam as well. But I don't know. It's like I said, you love what you grew up with, and in my case, it was EMUs. So yeah, I'm electric through and through.
Yeah. To go off the back of that as well. So I think that's why, Dan, whenever we talk, we always sort of vibe on the same sort of thing where we're very much all about electric stuff. And I don't know if you felt the same sort of pain that I felt where it came to electrics, because we're Southern boys. We are all about the third rail electric. And it always felt that when I was younger that the only electric you could get was all about overhead electric. And that made it even worse because there was still some form of electric out there, but not the sort of stuff that we saw running around regularly down here.
I think it's a crime from the RTRs that certainly the EMU market is overlooked, and it's overlooked quite significantly, and it's always been overlooked. And I think if you're modeling anything that's modern day traction, and by modern day traction I mean anything 80s plus, then if you've got 86s and 87s and 91s on your layout, then realistically you should also have 350s and if you've got any region that's got an electric overhead catenary, then should have EMUs as well. And I find it criminal that certainly the southern region, and for most of it, ScotRail as well, completely overlooked. East Anglia completely overlooked. And it's great that Hornby have brought out the Flirt, but I think it's criminal that the RTRs, and I get it. I understand why. There's a lot more cost involved. It's much more expensive. Most EMUs are 3, 4, 5 coaches long, so the cost is there, and is the demand there for it. I get all of that, but you could say the same about some of the narrow gauge. You could say the same about certain steam locos. You could say the same about certain diesels, the APT, these are all items that are niche items. And I think most people that sort of model nowadays that, have a passion for modeling and stuff, want to be able to replicate what they see around them. And you can't really do it fully unless you've got if you model certain areas or certain regions, if you haven't got an EMU. And I just think it's a shame. And I understand why. I can understand the logistics and, you know, the costs involved and so on. But think a prime example is a Class 387 Electrostar. They're all over the south, southern region. They're in, you know, Great Western. They're in East Anglia. You know, it's one EMU that's everywhere, and yet nobody does it. Yet, you know, we'll get a Class 104 DMU. We'll get a flirt. You know, I don't know. I find it very remarkable that the RTRs don't really support EMUs in the same way. But that's enough of me ranting. That's my rant over.
Do you notice that I immediately started poking the bear straight from the off? I've got someone who's got the same mindset as me, and I'm just sort of slowly prodding along. Go on.
I just think it's a shame, because I know there's people out there that I'll be honest, as someone that builds kit building units, and most of the units I build are sort of circa 1990s. But there are, you know, I have built recently a Class 458 stroke 4, which is very, very new in terms of what it looks like. And I know the amount of people that have reached out to me and said, you know, I really want a Class 455. I really want a Class 442. The amount of times I've been asked to build a Class 442, and I won't do it. And the reason I won't do it is it takes forever to build this. It's not an easy build. It's a really long build. And then you've got to paint it, and then you've got to fit all the detail on it. And it's just, mine took 3 years to do, and I just can't face doing it again. So, but the point I'm making is the amount of people that have asked me for one, you know, and in the end, I just refer them, because there's some great people out there like Britannia Models and Bradshaw Model Kits and so on, who are fantastic. They do a great job. You know, there is a premium, unfortunately, that comes with it. You have to pay a little bit more money than you would for an RTR, but they do a great job. And I think, you know, if we're going to support the hobby, then we need to be able to sort of support the people that do what they do, and they do a great job. So, but the point I'm making is there is people out there that want these products, and I'm continually being asked for them. And I just think we need to do better. We just need to do better. RTRs, come on, get your finger out. Batman, Hornby, let's sort it. Come on.
Yeah. Because I think I know my brother, because of he works on the Thameslink route. You know, he's not a massive railway modeler, but I know he would buy a 319 if they made it an 00. I know that they've got it an N. He's just hoping that one day they'll make it a bit bigger. And the same with the Class 700. And I appreciate that the 700 is a big train, and that's asking a lot of an 00 gauge model in that size. But it does seem an untapped market. I know Dapol have started to sort of, I think they've got the 323 they're looking at doing.
Yes.
But like you say, it seems criminal that the Electrostar doesn't exist. Especially how wide and varied it is on all the different routes. It does surprise that it's not out.
Yeah, I mean, I can only go by how I felt growing up, that I couldn't replicate what I saw outside. And you know, to be fair, I mean, it's very different, because back then we didn't have the internet. We didn't have the opportunity to be able to look things up. You know, you had to go there if you wanted to see it. You physically had to take yourself outside or go down to your local station or so on. It was all, none of that information was accessible. You know, you could buy a magazine, or you could go to an event and see the models running at a depot open day, for instance. But there was no way of seeing that information, so you had to sort of go out there and see it. And you know, when you come home, when as a kid, when I come home, I was like, right, I want to run a 4 VEP, or I want to, you know, run a 4 EPB, because that's what I saw when I used to get the train home. I grew up in southwest London. I used to live in Kingston, and we used to go to Wimbledon a lot. And Wimbledon's depot is huge. And I used to watch everything going through there, and it was just amazing to see. And then when I got home, the only thing I could replicate was a Class 33, and that was it. And then, fortunately, Lima brought out the 73 a little bit later on. But it was very frustrating. So yeah, we need more. We need more. Unfortunately, the RTRs need to do something about it.
Okay, no surprises there. Your favourite of the is electric. What we always like to ask on the second question is, what is your favourite scale?
I'm not going to lie. It's a no-brainer for anyone that knows me. It's going to be 00. Yeah, I just, the thing I love about 00 is that it's the right size to do detail. It's the right size for me to be able to paint and to be able to be creative and to get kits and everything for. It's not too small that I struggle and my vision is going. Trust me, as I'm getting older. I am wearing glasses now, which I wasn't when I got into this hobby. But yeah, 00, it's small enough to be able to do what I want to do, but it's not too small for it to be inachievable. And it's funny, I've been listening to what you guys have been saying about O gauge, and I believe you're having a dabble with an O gauge kit, James. But for me, it's it's one of those things. I went into Gauge Master quite recently, and I was looking at the new O gauge class 73, not the one they put on the fence, mind you, but it was the Network Southeast one, and it was just the detail on it is just absolutely stunning, and the detail for me is what really makes it sort of worthwhile. And I looked at it and I thought, oh my god, if I could do O gauge, I would do O gauge. I just can't afford it, and I have no room. I live in a flat. I've got nowhere to put in it. But I would go for O gauge. If I had a garden, I would want an O gauge garden layout, without shadow of a doubt. That would be it. If I had a big enough garden, that would be the one thing I would absolutely desperately try and do, is just have a bit of track running around the garden with a few units and 73s and 33s on.
I was going to say your answer was such like a breath of fresh air when you said O gauge, and I thought for weeks and weeks talking about O gauge, and thought at last, and then no, we went there.
No, we did, but no, 00 gauge. It's just the right size to do what I want to do, to get the availability and all the kits that I want to build, to get all the units I want to do. And there are a lot. So yeah, 00 gauge is for me absolute.
Yeah, no, I think that's the same with most people. It's the O gauge is the compromise, but I think O gauge is the dream.
So. Yes. Brilliant. Yes.
Excellent stuff. Awesome. Right. Well, we'll move on to the next question then, and that is, what is your favorite loco that you own, or in your case could be a unit?
To what I was just saying, the very, very first loco I ever got was actually a steam train, but I won't talk about that because as much as I love it, it was an E100 LBSC, the one that they used for Thomas the Tank Engine. It was the Hornby. It was a little train set. It had like 5 wagons and the E100. It was a fabulous little thing. But no, the first sort of modern traction loco I got was a Lima Class 33, and it was 33027, Earl Mountbatten of Burma. And to this day, it is my absolutely favourite all-time locomotive. It didn't survive, unfortunately. It was scrapped in the 90s, but it's just there was something about it that just completely sold me. And anyone that's sort of southern region will know 33s dominated the region back in the 80s and early 90s, and you couldn't have a southern region layout if you didn't have a Class 33, and they were just amazing. They were just so distinctive and such great locos. So me and Pete from NSC Latchmere, we had loads of these Lima Class 33s. In the end, we just went mad and bought. I think at one point I had about 12 and he had about 15. He's always one-upmanship, but yeah, he had about 15, and we would run them on his layout. I did have a layout. It was quite small though. He had this great big loft layout, and we used to run them. And the noise of like 4 or 5 Lima locomotives running around at like sort of the equivalent of 60, 70 miles an hour, screaming. Yeah, it was very loud. His father used to bang on the ceiling, turn it down, turn it down. so yeah. 33027 was my all-time favorite locomotive. I obviously replicated it with the Helljan one when I could afford to swap them over. But I still have that Lima loco. Still have it.
That's cool. And I do like the choice of a Class 33. I'm quite fond of them as well. So yeah, I can understand that one. And that noise, I remember as a kid, my dad having his layout in the loft, and I don't think he had the best baseboards in the world, so he had to result in having the diesel locomotives because they obviously ran a bit better on the poor track work. And yeah,
Yes.
talk about that sound, and I remember that just the screams of those pancake motors just going around the room.
It was mad, and of course you had double-headed ones, and so yeah, we would have like literally rakes of 33 hauled stock, and the noise was insane. Brilliant. It was classic. You couldn't repeat it now, unfortunately.
Right then, that's your favourite loco that you own, and maybe we've probably already touched on this a little bit in our conversation, but what is the favourite loco or unit that you don't own? And as we say, it doesn't necessarily have to be something that's been manufactured. It can be something out of production or something you'd like to see in production.
It is without a shadow of a doubt. I had to think about this one while I was sort of toying what I was going to say, and I'll be honest with you. As soon as I thought it was like, oh, yeah, no question. It is Forvep 3417, which is Gordon Pettit, and it's the one that was recently. The guys from the SETG have been working on, and they're doing an absolutely phenomenal job trying to restore the real thing. And what they've done with that unit is beyond anything that we could hope for. It's absolutely stunning, the work that they've been doing on it, and all power to them. I do pay a sponsorship every month towards it because I just think what they're doing is phenomenal. And I think something that Steve Potter, who's one of the guys that has been sort of heading up the team that are doing it, one of the things he said was that, we take it for granted that stuff that we see and travel on every day that gets us to work, the mundane stuff, we don't think anything of it while we're doing it. But when it's gone, it's something that you kind of really do notice, and you kind of think, well, I traveled on that every day. It was part of my life. And he's absolutely right. So a model of that would be incredible. And I've always sort of said to myself, I will build myself one, because obviously the Hornby model is out there now, and it's the new version is sensational. It's still not quite right, but it's as good as we can expect from an RTR. So I'd love a model of that. It's out of my area. I can't obviously run it with all my other stuff because it's my area's sort of network southeast, 85 to 93, 94, and that's obviously followed from Southwest Trains and Southwestern Railway. So it's out of my area, but I would love it anyway because I just think it's a fantastic unit, and a model of that would be sensational.
Yeah, definitely. And I like what you say with the taking the everyday trains for granted, and that my biggest regret is the HSTs, but with them now gone off the Great Western, the amount of times you just see them go by and didn't bat an eyelid at it, and now they're gone. Oh boy, do I miss them. So
yeah. And absolutely so, because anything that you kind of it's part of your life. It's what you grew up with, and I can understand the steam heads or the kettle heads as we call them. I can understand why they're so passionate about steam, because if you grew up with it and it's in your blood, it's there, it's part of your life, and you take it for granted because it's just something that you see every day. So yeah, I totally get it.
Right then, we'll move on to the next question. Is what is your favourite plan you've undertaken so far? And I suppose of you, there's many to choose from.
Oh, mate, you guys have really stung me with this one. And I'll be honest with you, I'm really struggling with an answer. There's a couple of things that I could probably sort of go for. It's like saying, what's your favorite child to any parent? And I know you can understand that. I think for me, I would say there's a few things that I've built that I'm really proud of. The Class 442 Wessex I'm really proud of. And again, as I said earlier, that was a really difficult build. Because I built it when half of the stuff that was designed for you to build that kit wasn't available. So I had to kind of build it with what I could get my hand on. It was pre-internet days, so there wasn't a lot of information. So you had to kind of go out and get loads of photographs and then wait for them to be developed and then have a look at them and all that kind of stuff. Gosh, I'm talking like prehistoric here. So that was a really tough one. And I was really proud of that. I've then had to go back and redo it because obviously the technology came through. I think that recently I've built quite a few things, a couple of EPBs, 4 EPBs I've built for Folly Lane. I'm really proud of those. It was something that I didn't really want to do, but Martin talked me into it. I was really, really pleased with how they turned out. And they've posted a video recently for an event that they're doing later in the year. And they've just sort of shared that unit on the video. So I've had some really positive feedback from them on that. And I'm currently doing a couple of 4.6s for them. So yeah, I think it's probably stuff that I'm proudest of. A class 319 I built, I'm really proud of because it just came out so incredibly well. The paint job on it, and Sam, you'll appreciate when you're painting a model for someone else, the fear of it just not coming out right, or when you pull that masking tape off and half the paint job comes off with it. It's quite frightening. It's quite frightening. So I think that's probably one of my proudest achievements is that class 319 because it came out beautifully. I was really pleased with it. And I'm just finishing now a class 458, which again has turned out really well. So I think if I had to pick one, I would probably say the 319, but you can't hold me to it, I'm afraid, guys.
The answer might change in the next week or so.
Yeah.
At this moment in time.
Right now.
I will echo that your 4 EPBs are the thing I'm most jealous of. Having built a thumper unit, a 3-car thumper unit, and having to do effectively creating that center car, I don't know how you had the patience to create 2 center cars for those units.
It was 4. It was 4 in the end because they've got a Network Southeast one and they've got a blue-grey one. I'll be honest with you. You've just got to the one thing I would say for any modeler is just patience. You know, we all need a bit of skill and we need to practice, and for every great thing I've created, there's about 8 or 9 other things in the bin that are in a scrap box that I've gone back to and reused parts from. But as a general rule, you do have to have patience because we all want, if I build something, I'm like, I want it done now. But Southwest Max said something to me the other day that really sort of resonated well. It's just trust in the process. And he's absolutely banging right. You just got to take your time and be really, really patient. And if I could say that to anyone that's getting into this element of the business, is just take your time. If it takes 2 years, it takes 2 years. I know that's not what you want to hear, but you just have to take your time.
Can we also just discuss the fact that both you and I, we both create these various bits and bobs, and I agree that taking the masking tape off, and it's why Martin has been so good with me with his Connex one that I've been working on for over a year now, because I lose my temper with it so regularly.
Yes,
I need to bring to the forefront of anyone listening to this podcast, whilst I use an airbrush for doing mine, Danny does it by hand.
Yes.
So let's just clarify how good the work is.
Oh, bless you. I do it by hand, and there's 2 reasons to do it by hand. A, because it's how I learned. It's what I grew up with. And Pete from NSC Latchmere, he air sprays. So there's nothing wrong with trying it. But when you've lived in a flat or in an apartment block, airbrushing is not so easy to do unless you've got good ventilation. And you have to remember, airbrushing, you need to wear a face mask, you need to protect the area that you're working in, because obviously these chemicals and stuff, if you're doing a lot of it, aren't particularly healthy. So I just hand paint because it's easier. I don't have that worry. I don't have to worry about sort of the fumes and so on. And it's just been something that I found very easy to do. Weathering, it's an absolute freaking nightmare, not being able to airbrush, but it's just something that I've had to learn to work around. And the other reason I paint by hand is I've learned a method that makes it so much easier to do. And 8 times out of 10 doesn't rip the paint off with the tape. And if there's one tip I can share, is I don't use masking tape. I use Scotch Invisi tape. The stuff that you can buy in Ryman's or Smith's, Direct Smith's. Other retailers are available. The Scotch Invisible tape, because it has the way they cut the tape, it has a completely straight edge, and Also, it's got the right level of tack, so it doesn't pull too hard when you lift it up. And when you put it down, you seal the edge with a cocktail stick. It actually doesn't give you that sort of wobbly edge. And I found using that, and that is one of my biggest tips, biggest secrets, I should say, that it is an absolutely great piece of kit. Also, the thing with Scotch Invisi-Tape is when you put it down, you can see through it, so you can see underneath. So if you're doing Network Southeast lining, you can actually see underneath the tape, so that you know you've lined it up, so you get a straight line. So when you look at it from an angle, you can see that it's A, that it's straight, but B, that where you've laid it down on top of the edge or the model, you can see what's underneath, so you know that the line it's not too thick, it doesn't wobble, it hasn't got a curve in it, all those kind of things which you can't do with regular masking tape. So that's a bit of a tip for you guys.
Wow, I'm just amazed that you do it by hand. But yeah, the tape, I'm definitely going to take that one away and have a go at that, because I've attempted Network Southeast before when I did a 165 3D print and N-Gage, and that was the biggest challenge. Like you say, was getting that NSE livery correct and all the lines right. So thank you very much for that.
No worries, no worries. Yeah, it's one of those things, because obviously people say, like, well, how do you measure it out? Do you draw a line? And the thing is, I mean, obviously I've painted it so many times. I've done about 20 units in that livery. So trust me, I'm well adverse to Network Southeast. But the way you line it up and so on, when you're using Scotch Invisi-Tape, and it has to be Scotch Invisi-Tape. It can't be W.H. Smith's own or one of those kind of like sort of own brand ones. But when you put it down, you can eyeball it and see, right, okay, I'm 2 mil from the top. So where the edge is, or where the line is, I can see underneath the tape. I'm actually along the line of the hinges, the door hinges, and so I know it's straight. And you can see through it to see that is the case. So yeah, brilliant. It's the one top tip I would share.
Okay. So that's one recommendation of a purchase, and we'll go on to our next question, which is about purchases. What is your next hobby purchase? And as we always say, it doesn't have to be a locomotive. It could be anything as mundane as a roll of tape.
Well, funnily enough, I have signed up for the 4DD double-decker EMU that KR Models have been working on. It's due out, I think, in a couple of months' time. And it's the equivalent of, it's very similar to a 4-sub or a 4 EPB, but it's a double decker. It was the UK's only ever double decker unit, which isn't really double decker because it's like this one seat above the other, the way you walk through and so on. But yeah, anyway, I've signed up for that. So I think it's about 375 quid, which is probably my entire pension. But there you go. So I've signed up for that, and I'm looking forward to getting that later in the year. And I'm also looking to get another class 458, but this time the original one, the 458/0 from CMAT Models. So the one I did earlier this year, I'm going to be selling that on to, well, I won't say who, but that there is someone that really wants it. So that one is not really my area. So I kind of did it for the purposes of just seeing if I could do a CMAT Models kit. So that one I'm selling on, but I'm going to be doing the original one, which is, for anyone that doesn't know, the Juniper unit. It was quite an ugly looking unit when it came out. It was the one with the flat doors on the front that opened up over the cab, and it was quite noticeable when it first came out because it was just very, very problematic. But yeah, for some strange reason, I really liked it, and I like that unit. So that's possibly my next purchase. I don't know yet which one I'm going to get first, but definitely those two.
So, yeah, the 458, that was quite a brutal sort of cab front, isn't it? With that.
Yeah, it was just one of those things. You look at it, you think, like, oh god. I remember when they came out. Actually, I looked at it and I thought, there it was parked at Waterloo alongside all the Veps and Sigs, and I looked at it and I thought, oh my god, I hope that's not what we're going to get loads and loads of. Yeah, it just didn't look right when I first saw it, but now I love it because they were just so distinctive, and they were just so, I'm sure there's a lot of railwaymen that work at Wimbledon that absolutely would say very unpleasant things about them because they were a freaking nightmare when they first came out. But in the end, they turned out to be great units.
That's cool. Yeah, that's, I think it's nice when you sort of go for a not pretty train.
Yeah,
Of the workhorse style, isn't it? And I mean that's what makes a model railway, isn't it? It's rather than having all the eye catchers, it's
yeah,
all
definitely. It's like the Q1. If you're into steam, the Q1 was just the most bizarre looking steam engine. It just everything about it is wrong, but it was an incredibly good workhorse, and I'm sure. I mean, it's one that I have a model of, funnily enough, because it is just such a brutally odd looking thing, but it's a great locomotive. It's just an absolute classic.
yeah, there is something about them as well. Yeah, again, like you say, yeah, it's that unusual, brutal look. Cool. So those are some very exciting purchases for you in the future. And we look forward to seeing you working on them. We'll go on to our next question, which is, what is your favourite part of the hobby?
Given what I do, I can tell you the bit of the build process I love the most, and I think it probably resonate quite well with you as well, Sam. It's not the weathering, but it's close to that. It's adding all the detail on once I've painted it. So when I've painted a mod, there's 3 stages to building a kit build unit. There's the initial bit, which is like the actual construction of the actual kit itself and putting it all together. Then there's the painting, which is the second stage. And then there's the last stage, which is doing all the detailing and the test running and all that kind of stuff, adding like all the bits and pieces that make it look from a kit to an actual model. And it's what makes, for me, it makes it the real thing. So putting all the door hinges on, the windscreen wipers, putting on jumper cables and air pipes, and no smoking signs in the window, and curtains, and adding all the little bits that make it 3-dimensional and just give it that flair. That for me, I love that bit, because it's the exciting bit. You know, you've got the model now, you can run it, it works, and you're just taking it from a basic model to the final sort of detailed real thing. And it was the same when we used to get the Lima 33s, and we used to add all like the extra bits on it, like the pipes on the front of the buffer beams, and used to put all like the roof fan on. You would put like the foot plates and all of the pipe work, and then you would weather it, and it would just take it from that basic plastic Lima body to the end result, which would be like something fairly close to a hell jambon, but not quite. And yeah, that for me is just the best bit. I get really into that, because you can never really stop. You can just keep going. Just like, oh, I've put horns on it, and no smoking symbols, and all the little first class emblems and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, really, for me, that's the bit that I like the most.
That's very cool. Yeah, there is that satisfying element, isn't there, of just, you've worked hard on that model, you built it, you painted it, and now you're just adding those finishing touches that really make it stand out. So yeah, I can understand why you love that part of the hobby so much. So thank you for that answer.
I understand the adding the details and stuff. From a painting point of view, I don't know if you get this with Network Southeast.
Yeah.
I always find with the Network Southeast livery, I get the same sort of feeling when I put the red stripe on, because
Yes.
I do the white, then I add the grey stripe, then I add the blue section, and then it doesn't look right. And then you add the red stripe to it, and for some reason it pulls the whole thing together.
I think it's the warmth of the red. It's just, it takes it from being quite a cold looking job to being something quite eye-catching. It's funny, you know, because I always laugh when I talk to people about painting Network Southeast, because there's different ways people do it in different ways, and it's interesting that you put the white down, and then you add the grey, and then you add the blue, and then the red stripe goes on last. Because I do it the other way around. I prime it, and then I paint the blue first. The blue goes down straight onto the primer, and then I put the white around the blue. And it's an interesting one, because for some reason, what you're saying, the way you would do it, makes sense, because, you know, the blue on the white obviously has that color depth that it lifts off, and for some reason it doesn't quite work for me. I prefer to put the white down separately, and it's an interesting one. You know, it's just a modelist thing, I suppose. Everyone does it differently, and I could be quite a geek and go into all this, but like for me, it just works. It works in a very different way, and Pete from Latchmere, he's always laughing. He goes, "Why do you do it that way? It's such an odd way of doing it, but it works for me." So I can only assume that people different.
It's like you said, you trust the, like Southwest Max said, you trust the process. You know that that's your process,
100%.
and that's how you follow it. So yeah, no, that's
definitely
a fantastic analogy of your favorite part.
Usually what we say on the next question is, if you were to create a new layout, what's the one thing you need on it? But in your cases, you say you don't have a layout. So if
I
you
do
were
have an answer. I do have an answer. Third rail. It would have to have third rail, and anyone that's actually put third rail down knows it's not the easiest of jobs. I'm sure Sam could tell us a few stories. But yeah, it's, for me, third rail. It has to have third rail. And if I lived in East Anglia, I'm sure I would probably say overhead electrification. But no, it's got to have third rail. That for me would be the one thing I would insist on. So
no, that's a sensible answer, I suppose, for your chosen era and area and everything like that. So yeah, I can see why you'd go for that. Yeah, I've never. Yeah, Sam's more the expert on that one. I've seen people have a go at it, and I've seen sort of the problems you can get with it. It doesn't look like the easiest job in the world. So maybe that's another thing. Ready to run need to look for is it bring out more units at more suitable track. It's
definitely. Well, I mean, it's one of those things. I'd love a depot, and I'd love to have sidings and all that kind of stuff, because I think something like Wimbledon Yard for me would be an absolute dream to model. Wimbledon Yard or Stewart's Lane depot will probably be either one of those would be the dream. So third rail is kind of an essential for that. So if I was going to do it, that's what I would do.
cool.
I think the thing about third rail is I don't think it's necessarily hard to do once you get into the swing of it. As long as you're not leaning over a giant section of layout trying to do the third rail, it's not a problem. So hence why a lot of my boards on my old layout I made not so deep, so I wasn't going to break my back putting third rail in. I think the hardest thing about third rail is that everyone has an opinion about third rail.
Yeah.
The amount of comments and I made a point about it in one of our earlier episodes about how someone goes, "Oh, you should do this and you should do this and you should do this," and it's like, but if you look at it in real life, it's a little bit like when Sanford said that his dad said that there's a version of everything and it is done in a particular way. And someone questioned, why do you kick yours out a little bit at the end of the third rail? And it's, well, because that's what it looks like in Portsmouth. Like it actually kicks out a little bit. So I'm modeling it off that. Or why do you do it this many sleeper spaces? Because I counted the sleeper spaces and I can tell you it's this far apart. And it's just everyone, despite the fact that not many people model third rail, a lot of people have an opinion on third
Everyone's
rail.
an expert.
Yeah.
I tell you what, everyone is an expert. And I'm very fortunate because you did an episode on rivet counters, which I thought was absolutely fascinating. And just a quick shout out to you guys. I thought that was a really well handled episode. I thought you did a brilliant job in trying to put across that not everybody is aware of how they come across, but also that there are people that do have autism or might not necessarily know how they handle or say things and how things come across when they do communicate. And communication from everybody is a big frustration I can appreciate. So I thought you guys handled that episode really, really well. To you guys on that. But what I was going to say was that everyone does have an opinion on it, and everyone's an expert, and so you kind of have to deal with that all the time. And in my line of what I do, I'm very fortunate, but I do every now and again get someone that comes and says, "Oh, well, it shouldn't be like this, or it shouldn't be like that." And it's like, well, I'm a big believer in your model rail layout or what you do is for you, and if you share it with the world, then that's great, because everyone gets an opportunity to share in it and learn something from it, and that's what it is. It's you're sharing it, but it's not necessarily mean that you're there putting it out there to be I don't know, to be sort of attacked upon. And everyone is an expert, and for some reason it can be quite a challenge sometimes, but I've been very fortunate that I don't get a lot of that. And when I do get it, when it comes to units and stuff, it's predominantly from railwaymen who have like, oh, I've worked on that, or I've driven that, or I remember working on those back in the day, and so on. So they do tend to be very polite about it, and they do say like, well, it was like this, or it should be like that, and they're great. And that kind of feedback and recommendation from people is fascinating and really helpful. So when it's done the right way, fantastic. I'm all for it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's that. I mean, that was the point we were trying to get across in that episode. It's the way that it's said. It's can be the most helpful bit of information in the world, but you just got to make sure you get your point across in a polite manner, isn't it? So you may have already answered this one earlier with your handy...
my Invisitape.
But yeah, what is the one hobby item you'd encourage everyone to buy?
It's not so much an item, because I did think I would have said cocktail sticks, but Ollie from Sanford East, I thought, handled that one brilliantly. For me, the one item I would encourage everyone to buy is not so much a specific item; it's storage, and I'm not talking about there's some great storage options for people to keep their units and stuff in, which are great, are fantastic, but I'm talking about tool storage and storage for keeping all your bits in and your parts and so on. I've got quite a few things. I've got like a chest. I've got a toy chest. I've got like a metal kind of carry case, which I take to events and stuff with me. And there's nothing worse than spending half an hour looking for a screwdriver or for a particular pair of tweezers or for a specific item that you want to. I've gone looking for transfers that I've put down somewhere, and I thought, I definitely left it there, and it's not there. And it's, if you've got some really good storage, it can save you hours of trying to do things, trying to find things. And particularly in what I do, when you're building a unit, you kind of like, okay, I need to put some pipe work on, or I need some specific wire, or have I got this, have I got that, and am I running low on it? And if you've got stuff if you've got good storage, then that kind of thing pays dividends. I live in as I've said before, I live in a flat, so I haven't got a lot of room. My workbench is in the front room, and it is pretty much the dining table, so I have to kind of work around everything else that goes on in the house, and storage is essential. And I'm not going to say who, but there is someone I know who has everywhere, and I can't believe that person is able to do what they do, because it's just spending half an hour looking for a track rubber or or a screwdriver or something. And it drives me nuts. And I'm not being a Virgo or anything, but like storage and having things in, not necessarily always locked away or tidied away or sort of, but just knowing where to go to find something and having it easily findable when you get there, for me, is essential. It's a huge time saver. And I work in my own time, sort of in my own, what would be social time, because I have a full-time day job. So I don't have the luxury of time to go looking for things that I've put somewhere or in a box somewhere or under the bed or on the floor or something. So yeah, so storage is my absolute. That and Halford's primer. Halford's etch primer is brilliant.
Oh, isn't it just?
Halford's etch primer is a must-have. If you're doing anything with brass etch kits, Halford's etch primer is the other one.
On the etch primer, because it was yourself who recommended the etch primer to me when I did the forcep conversion.
Yes,
you helped me massively on that one. So since then, I've tested using the etched primer on plastic kits.
Yes.
So when I'm doing, and I'll go ahead and say it works fantastically on those as well. I was really worried using an etched primer on the plastic kits would sort of melt away at the plastic. And it doesn't. I mean, the 150 bodies that I'm using for my 455 conversion. I use the etch stuff on there, and it's worked brilliantly, and it's hidden a lot of the lazy paint stripping that I've done on the bodies. So, because anyone who, I mean, it doesn't matter what era Bachmann bodies you use. Sometimes you get somewhere the paint is so thick that it's like a step to go up it. And the etch stuff's really good for working away at that. So yeah, Halford's primer's definitely a really good shout.
Well, I have both. I've got the regular primer and the etch primer, and I'll be honest with you, most of the kits that I build are where I'm converting like for instance, I'm working on 246 for Folly Lane at the moment, and they're etched sides over a plastic body shell that was originally a 4VEP. It's a bit more than that. Obviously, you had to cut things out and take things apart and stuff like that. But it's essentially that's what it is. So it's a combination of plastic and etch. And that being the case, you do have to use both. You do have to etch. You have to use the primer on both. So I just use the etch primer on both, and it's fine. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know. This is where my imposter syndrome kicks in, where I sort of like, well, I wouldn't really know if it's the right thing to do or not, but it works for me, so I'm not going to say no.
But that's the thing, it works for you, so there's no problem with it, and it is very much one of those. It may work for you, and it may not work for other people, but that doesn't mean that what you're suggesting is wrong. I think that's a really good way of looking at it, especially from the point of view of that you do this a lot and it works for you. And whilst you may suggest one thing to another person may think that that's a terrible idea. But is the finished product, trust the process is what
trust the process. Yeah, absolutely. And do you know what's really interesting is a lot of people have said to me like, I wish I could do what you do, or I'd kill to be able to build units and stuff like you do. And I'll be honest with you, it's all trial and error. You know, when I was 10, 11 years old and I got that cornflakes box, and Pete and I were building GLVs in our parents' kitchens and cutting up cornflakes boxes to do it. We just kind of tried it and it worked, and it was great at the time. I mean, you look at it now, you'd be like horrified, but back then, and you just kind of build and you try things. And I owe a lot to Pete from Latchmere, because it was him that. He's crazy when it comes to building anything. He would think nothing of going out and spending £350 on a Hornby VEP and then hacking it to pieces and then building something out. He doesn't have any fear when it comes to that kind of stuff. And I learned a lot from him in that respect, because it is something that I'd be like, I'm not just spending £200 on that and then sawing the cab off. Are you mad? But you do, and you learn from things. And you know, as I said earlier, you know, you might have one great model but 8 destroyed ones in a box under the bed or something. But that's how you learn. And you know, we started off on Lima Mark 1s and Lima products, and they were like £30 a piece. And then now we moved up to sort of Hornby VEPs and so on, and they're £200 a piece. But there's a process that you go through, and you learn by trial and error, and some things work. And in this case, etch primer on plastic and metal seems to work great. But there are a couple of things that I could tell you that I won't right now, but where I've done it and thought, oh Christ, that's not gone right at all. What did I do? There was something I used. I used an acrylic varnish on an enamel painted model, and I watched the paint just slide off, and it was horrific. And I looked at it, I was just like, oh Christ. So yeah, some things you learn, and some things work great, and some things don't. But that's that's how it goes.
I remember having a conversation with Pete about when I was doing my 3-car thumper unit, and he was messaging me and said, "Oh, make sure that the first class section is done X, Y, and Z. Depending on the unit, it was in a different place." And I was like, "Oh, don't worry. Here's the resources I used. Here's where I've got." And I put it all on, varnished it. And I need to reiterate, this has never happened on any transfers, decals, paint jobs, or anything I've ever done. I got it in the specific part that we'd spoken about, and I went to weather, as I do with every other unit I've done, and the particular decal that I'd used for the first class section just turned to dust. So all of the hard work I'd done on preparing the unit to have that first class decal on it just went away anyway. So it looked like I'd basically ignored everything Pete had said, and it didn't exist. And I was like, well, I look like a right idiot now.
It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking when that happens. And yeah, I've done the same with white lining on blue grey. I've watched it all just literally crack and just go awful and flake off, and it's horrific. But yeah, that's how you learn, you know. So there's nothing wrong with buying sort of some of the cheaper stuff and having a go with a couple of times just to build your confidence up, because that's how we learned.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? And you know, there's always a recommendation like in weathering that is you start off cheap, maybe a couple of wagons and practice and work your way up before you start getting your airbrush out.
Absolutely.
Okay, but even then, you still get the occasional disaster. I remember ruining an LMS inspection balloon just by using the wrong varnish and the wrong temperature and the wrong humidity, and the glazing was destroyed on it, and that model was ruined. So you know, these things happen, but there's ways of sorting it out and fixing it, and that's how you learn, isn't it? So
Yeah, yeah. I think when you're doing it for yourself, you know, have a go and just try it. You know, if you're doing it for someone else, you've got to be a bit more careful, which is what I've learned. It's like you can't necessarily take so many risks. But yeah, I think if it's always important to try and you know, don't be over ambitious and do something crazy first time. You know, do something very simple, very easy, and have a go at it and have a practice. Eventually, when you feel a bit more confident, you can move on to that bigger item or that more expensive product or that more risky situation.
so yeah, I do like the answer of storage as well. That is so true of so many modelers. He's finding the right storage, and I'm exactly the same. I have to have stuff stored correctly because if I don't, it'll just end up in a mess and I can't find anything, and then I won't get anything done. And I find I'm constantly tidying the model room before actually doing any modelling. So I think I do more tidying than modelling. Okay, so we've only got 2 questions left to ask. It's been lovely talking to you, Dan. It's been absolutely great answers. Now, the next one we always ask is your favourite exhibition and layout. And as we always say, the layout doesn't have to be in an exhibition. It could be something you've seen on YouTube or in a magazine or a museum you visited. But we're also aware that people that we've been talking to don't always go to exhibitions. So, do you go to exhibitions, and do you have a favourite one? I suppose is the first question.
In all honesty, I don't go to enough, and I used to go all the time when we were younger. Pete and I used to go to loads of these shows, and they've all moved on so much now. Obviously, like you know, with Getz and Wally and all that kind of stuff. They're so much bigger and better than they used to be. We used to go to all the events that were like Depot Open days because that's where they used to happen when we were younger. Those are kind of a go-to. So like you go to Eastleigh and there'd be all the traders there and so on, and the layouts and so on. If I'm honest, we don't go as much as we should do or as much as we used to. So I've kind of thrown myself into it this year. I've said I'm gonna go to a lot of shows this year, and then I've been asked to actually present at a lot of shows this year, so I'm actually doing quite a few myself. But if I had to pick one, I'd probably say DEMU Showcase is the one that I would say I really enjoy. I like it because I presented there last year, so I'm a bit biased, but I liked it because there were a lot of people there that were modelers themselves that were promoting what they do and their skill set and so on. So it wasn't so much about the big layouts like you know with what Peter Waterman and the guys have done. Is just, I mean, that's just insanely good. I would die if someone did something like that for the southern region. But yeah, I think those kind of things are amazing, and I don't take anything away from them, but it was actually quite nice as a modeler myself to go to something where there were a lot of other modelers that were showcasing their skills, and you could learn a lot. So I would say the EMU Showcase is probably my favorite at the moment. But yeah, I would say that's my favorite show. Favorite layout. I'm going to be a bit naughty here. So I go to Latchmere a lot, and just to give you some context, Pete and I used to go to we met when we was 10 years old. We went to school, and the school we went to was called Latchmere, which is why his layout is called Latchmere. He's named it after that. And I love what he's done with that layout. It's just incredible, and there's so much more to come. I think you guys are going to be in for a real treat when he unveils some of the stuff that he's been working on. But my absolute favorite layout has got to be a layout by a chap called Paul Wade, and it's called Tunbridge West Yard. And it's not in circulation anymore. He's retired, and he doesn't go to the exhibitions anymore. But the thing I loved about this layout is I discovered it when he built a version of it. I think he called it Maidstone Barracks many years ago, and this was pre-internet days. So as I was saying earlier, you go to a show, you go to a Depot Open day, and you would see all these layouts and so on. And no one ever modeled the southern region back in the 80s and early 90s. Nobody did it. It just wasn't, nobody had, did it. They did it in Steam, in everything was, steam locos or paint or green units, but no one ever did a modern day or what was at the time a modern day layout of the southern region. And this chap, Paul Wade, amazing guy. He built this layout called Tunbridge West Yard, and it's actually based on Tunbridge West Yard. So when you see it, you actually recognize elements of what is Tunbridge West Yard. And it was full of units, so rather close to home for me, but forceps and 4 EPBs and all of those kind of units. And I'm sorry for anyone that's not really a southern region person. When I talk about things like 4 EPBs and forceps, they're going, what? So apologies to that, but there were basically a lot of variations of southern region units, and Paul Wade had loads of them that he'd hand built, very much like myself. Hundreds of these sort of etched kits and MTK kits, which were the only real kits you could get back then. And I'd never seen anything like it. I'd never even seen a southern region unit, never mind fleets of them all over this layout. And he's very big on departmental stock. So he's got like Dutch 33s and 73s and all sorts of different hand-built wagons that are like engineers' wagons, and all of the civil engineers sort of things that, track laying and electric signaling and all of that kind of stuff. And it's just incredible. So if you Google it, this layout, it's definitely worth a look in. And if you're into southern region, then this is the one. This is like the Don of layouts. It's just brilliant, and all power to him. I've actually seen it several times. I went to visit him last year to have a look at it, and we went, loads of people in a Twitter group, the TMRG UK, we all went down to have a look at it and see it live. And yeah, what an amazing day. Paul Wade is a fantastic guy, so it was really nice to see. So yeah, Tunbridge West Yard.
I know exactly the layout you're talking about. So I have a folder of magazine articles that I keep, which I sort of call my Bible, and it's got like articles of how to do stuff or things like that, and at the front of it I keep layouts that I find really inspirational, and yeah, Tunbridge West Yard is one of them, and it's in here. So anyone that wants to have a look back through the magazines and find it, I can tell you that it's in the Hornby magazine January 2016 and Railway Modeler March 2017. It's an absolutely fantastic layout, and I totally agree with that choice. It's so it was the engineering yard that did it for me.
Yes.
I love engineering trains. There's something about them. And looking at the photos, all those wagons, all those different formations and that, it just makes it look so interesting. So, yeah, awesome choice.
And he's hand built all of those wagons and stuff like that. And I'll be honest with you, I never realised the scope of range of different CE stuff that he's built. It's just insane, and a lot of them are really sort of like one-offs and cranes and all sorts of wagons that have like cabling and sleepers and track work and all sorts of stuff. It's just insane. And yeah, he's done an incredible job with that. And he does it all. He builds it all himself. He goes out and gets donor wagons and then converts them over and repaints them and all that kind of stuff. And the detail is insane. So I'm glad you know exactly who I'm talking about. It certainly makes me feel like I'm not talking about something that no one knows. So that's brilliant.
That's amazing. It is so interesting to hear about how things that we even now, I even complained about it when we talked about it, but we take it for granted, but actually it was worse 10, 15, 20 years ago. So, yeah. And I hope that one day I get a chance to go and see it, but at the same time, it's also nice to view things from afar.
So, as you're talking about resources and how hard it was back then, obviously today, things are a lot more at your fingertips, so to speak. So for our last question, as we always like to ask, what is your favourite resource?
Well, I can't say one particular thing because obviously I know originally the question changed. Originally it was Instagram or YouTube, and I use them both, but I use them very differently. So I use Instagram for the community, that it builds a great community, and I've certainly met you guys through Instagram. but I use YouTube as very much as like a research thing, in the same way I use Flickr, and YouTube I use for research. I research everything I build. I get thousands of pictures off YouTube, Flickr, and Twitter, and even Facebook. I found particularly Facebook recently has been really, really useful, because there's a lot of people on Facebook that are very much in railwaymen, signalmen, and so on, who are really, really helpful. So asking them stuff and being able to talk to them before I actually build something, or while I'm in the process of building something, helps to steer everything in the right direction, so that I don't necessarily get to the end and then someone goes, oh, you shouldn't do that, or they were never like that, or do you know what I mean? So just sort of that process has been really useful. There's a website that I would highly recommend if you're into Southern Region Slammer units, which is what I predominantly focus on. There's a website called Blood and Custard. It's www.bloodandcustard.com, and it's probably the most useful website I think I've ever sort of found online. It's a bizarre name. It's obviously to do with the delivery back in the 50s, but it has all the units individually listed, and it talks about all the different, so say for instance, at the moment I'm building these 246 for Folly Lane. If you go onto Blood and Custard and look up 4.6, you can see all the history of all the units, the different types of 4.6 and the different variations, and all of the tech information's in there, but also the history's there. And in some places, they talk about the history of each specific unit. So when it was built, when it was scrapped, what livery it was in, when it got repainted, when it had a facelift, all that kind of stuff. And if you're a bit of a geek like me, that information's quite useful when you're building something. So that would be my biggest recommendation as a modeler of the Southern Region units, is to go to that website, www.bloodandcustard.com. Fantastic.
Awesome. That's a wicked recommendation.
Having used the Blood and Custard website as well, it is fantastic for identifying units that operated in a particular area as well. So when I'm renumbering units or when I'm repainting units, you can Control F on a particular page, and if you search Fratton, which is what I did, it identifies units that were based at Fratton. So it means that I can start looking at units that were local to my area. So when I'm having units run around, I can make sure that they at least operated in the rough area. So that's another upvote for Blood and Custard.
No, it is great. I mean, I'm quite lucky because I still got a couple of train spotting books from when I was from 1988, 1989. That have got all the numbers in for the units that were around at that time. And I use that all the time when I'm ordering transfers from Railtech. He does all the custom transfers, custom numbers and stuff. So you tell him what unit you want to do and the numbers of all the carriages. And I'm so grateful I've still got those two books, because I pretty much cleared when I went through my reckless sort of 20s and late teens, I kind of put all that stuff behind me, and a lot of it I lost. But I fortunately I managed to keep hold of these two books, two Ian Allen kind of train spotting books, and they've got all the unit numbers in and all of the coach numbers and all that kind of stuff. So it's the one saving grace that I would say that I can go back to, the one resource. But no, Blood and Custard is a fantastic website. So yeah, that would be my biggest recommendation.
Cool. That's an awesome recommendation. I'll have to have a look. I don't think I've looked at that one myself, but recommended by both of you, so it must be good. Excellent stuff. Well, unfortunately, that's the end of our questions. But it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you, Dan. So we always like to give you the opportunity for people to find you, and we always ask, how can they?
Oh, thanks, guys. Look, I really appreciate you having me on, and I'm so grateful to be able to participate in this podcast. I think what you guys are doing is superb, and I'm only jealous that Pete and I didn't get to do it before you, because we did talk about doing a podcast of our own. But no, what you guys are doing is superb, and thank you for having me on it. I'll be at a few shows this year, so I'm doing DEMU Showcase in June, and Chatham Dockyard in July. Doing Beckenham and West Wickham in October with Gauge Master as well. I think it's October the 5th, Gauge Master, or the 6th. And I'm doing Tolworth Show Train in November. So I'm bringing I'm bringing most of my units to those shows. So hopefully I can see some of you guys then. But in terms of social media and so on, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Twitter and Threads. Various multiple units on all of those, or Dan Havlick on Facebook, which is the only one that I did try and put myself down there as various multiple units, but it didn't. It came back about a week later and said you've got to put your name in. So that was what I did. But yeah, Dan Havlick. So yeah, but I use the hashtag various multiple units, and if you hashtag on any of those social media sites, it'll take you to me.
Amazing.
Paul, thank you very much. And I am planning to go to DEMU this year. So
Oh, wicked.
yeah, so I did it last year. That was the first time I managed. Usually they have it on a weekend where I'm working, and it's usually nights as well. So that means having to take off 2 annual leave days to get 1 day off, which is annoying. But that's something to raise with the union than on here. But yeah, I do intend to come this year, so I shall come and say hello.
Oh, please do. And look, I'm happy to talk to everybody and anybody, and I'm as much about being at the event to catch up with people and get to know people, get to meet people, as much as I am about showing off the stock. So please, even if you're not into various multiple units or any multiple units, just come and say hello anyway, because I'd like to meet as many people as I can. So that'd be great. Thank you.
No problem. Awesome. I was going to say, I'd be a bit concerned if anyone at DMU wasn't interested in that sort of thing.
It's in the name, isn't
it? But yeah, wicked stuff. Well, thank you very much for coming on, Dan. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and I'm sure for our listeners, it's been an absolute pleasure to listen in. We're going to take a short break now, and we're going to come back afterwards.
This world we live in is a wondrous and fascinating place. We stand on the brink of greatness and a chance to make a real difference in this world. 2 people who are not making a difference in the world are James and Sam. So great are their egos that you can now support them on Patreon from $5 per month to just show your support. You too can watch the model railway world burn under their narcissistic natures. Head on over patreon.com/Model Rail Replacement Podcast.
And we are back. And that was our interview with Dan. Thank you very much, Dan. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you. And I think we may have to have Dan back on again at some point just to continue our conversation. It was such a pleasure to talk to him.
Yeah, Dan's such a font of knowledge around these things. And I don't know if it's because Dan doesn't have a layout and only really gets to build stock or run it on someone else's layout. I think he has that thing of being able to... There's so much we could learn from Dan as hobbyists, because Dan scratch builds so much of the stuff that he does that I think it would be really useful to have him on for maybe I know one of the biggest fears of people is painting by airbrush, and the fact that Dan creates what he does simply by using a paintbrush, maybe it would be a really good conversation to have where we talk about painting and how to paint in the various different ways. And because I don't paint things by hand unless I'm weathering, maybe it'd be a good idea to get Dan on for something to do with painting models. So
yeah, yeah, indeed. Yes. Someone did indeed comment on my YouTube channel, had been listening to the podcast, and said, well, we're going to get other people on for chats. And I know we get people on for our questions and sort of that sort of chat. But yeah, I think maybe a chat about paint with Dan in the future could be one we could do. Awesome stuff. Right, so at the end of the show, we always like to do our usual roundup of things. First off, something we're shoehorning in is shout outs for exhibitions, etc. Anything upcoming events we'd like people to know about. And obviously this week will be the DMU showcase in Sutton Coldfield that Dan will be at. I shall also be attending. I also will be carrying, if I remember to bring them, a few limited edition Model Rail Replacement podcast coasters. So if you enjoy the show and you see me, come and say hello and say, I would like a coaster. And if I have one, I will give you one. Yep, they are made by a friend of mine. They're absolutely beautiful oak coasters. So yeah, that's one going on this week. So that's at Sutton Coldfield. I do believe it's over the weekend of both dates of the 15th and 16th of June. So the 15th it's 10 till 5, and on the 16th it's 10 till 4. Plenty of layouts there, plenty of trays. I went to get the go last year, first time. Usually they manage to book these things at the same weekend I'm working. Absolutely worth the journey, and great show if you are a diesel and electric modeler, or even if you're not. It's always good to go and appreciate other people's work, even if it's not your thing, shall we say. Sam, any more shows people might want to know about?
Yes, so we got the Slough Model Rail exhibition, got in contact with us to give us a shout out for their show. So the Slough Model Railway exhibition is on the 26th and 27th of October at Burnham Park Hall. You can have a look online to find more details about it. I'm just very lazy, and that's the information that I grabbed from the poster. So I do apologise to anybody who's looking for direct times and postcodes. That's all you're getting from me. Alternatively, there is also the Chatham show, which is going to be at the Chatham Historic Dockyard on the 20th and 21st of July. Now, not only is Danny from Various Multiple Units going to be there, but also I will be there too. I'm going to be at the Chatham show, weathering, and with any luck, I'll be right next to Danny. So we'll be able to say hello. So once again, if you do spot us there, I will have some coasters on me as well. So if you do like the show and you come along, I'll be handing out the Model Rail Replacement Podcast coasters on the weathering stand I'll be working at.
Awesome stuff. And as I say, yeah, they are lovely coasters, and you definitely want to get yourself one. Limited edition. There are only 60 in existence, so definitely something to aspire to get, I'd say. Right then, shall we move on to our social media shout outs of the week?
Yes, let's.
Right then, Sam. This week, I'm going to let you go first, and you can tell me who is your social media shout out of the week.
Cool. So this week, this one is very, very special to me. So this is going to be Miniature Realms. Miniature Realms is a commissioned painting service which is run by Stu. Now, this is very special to me because Stu has been a hobby friend for quite some years now. And it was, in fact, Stu of Miniature Realms who taught me how to airbrush. So everything I do is because Stu taught me loads of tips, techniques, and stuff like that. So whilst I may have picked up other bits from elsewhere, Stu is my hobby sensei. You might see me tagging him in things over the course of bits and bobs. He does so many different wargaming, modeling type things, but his painting is outstanding. He does some tutorials on how to paint. He does a lot of speed painting. He does some like high contrast things. So have a look, see what you fancy, but pop over there and give Stu a follow because his work is outstanding and he is an absolutely fantastic teacher. And I owe a lot of what I do now to Stu and what he's taught me.
Excellent stuff. That sounds very cool. I will have to go and check that one out.
And what about yourself, James? What are you bringing to the table this week?
So my shout out this week is Perth South, and it is a small channel at the moment and probably deserves a few more followers. He's only 2.6 thousand. But this is a layout that's based on, as the title would suggest, Perth South. It's going to be a computer-controlled layout of the various lines that go in and out, and it's absolute enigma of track going around the room. There's hidden storage lines. I think there's return loops and stuff like that for it. It looks like a real challenge, but such a fantastic and interesting follow. And I also like it because I don't have a massive knowledge of Scotland and Scottish railways and stuff like that. So I always find it really interesting when you find a subject you're not so well versed in, and you can pick up and learn whilst watching someone's channel of something they're building. So yeah, mine is Perth South, and you can find that on YouTube. So I suppose one of the other things we need to talk about is obviously we have come up with the concept of the battles. And a few weeks ago, we had the LMS battle. And something I wanted to talk to you about was that through the Instagram votes, because we like to test if we were right or wrong, I'm pleased to say that the Royal Scot actually beat the Jubilee in the public vote. So that was a small victory for me there after my defeat. But
did the 7F win over the 4F in the end?
It did. So obviously I started the polls around 7 in the morning. and then ran them till midnight. And at midnight, I checked the results, and that would be final. Anything after that doesn't get counted. The 7F did indeed beat the 4F. Only just, I think. I think it was a very tight margin between the two. There was a lot of love for the 4F, but I think the 7F just has that Somerset and Dorset backing behind it. We will then take these 5 finalists. We'll have to discuss what we do about the Jubilee, the Royal Scot, because obviously public vote may sway that one. But we will eventually offer them out so you to pick a challenger for the regional rounds when we put all the locomotives up against each other. So that'll be something to look out for on our account in the future. But next week will be our next battle. I have sent Sam my list, and we are going Southern. So, Sam, hope you're prepared.
I've seen your list. I'm not prepared. I'm not prepared.
It was tough. It was tough because I sat on that list for some time. There was quite a few choices, and I think in regards to Southern, you could easily break it up into the pre-grouping and have a battle just between the pre-grouping, like London South Western and
SECR.
Yeah, and the Brighton South Coast and all that. Each of them have such beautiful locomotives, and in their original liveries as well. I think makes it a lot harder. So it was quite a challenge to pick. So I look forward to our battle next week. Well, I think that wraps us up quite nicely. It has been a long episode, so if you have stayed with us to the very end, thank you very much, and we appreciate you. We always appreciate you listening. But for now, we're going to sign off by firstly giving ourselves our own social media get my words out, shout out. Sam, how can they find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at Emperors_Path, Facebook Emperors Path, YouTube Emperors Path. James, how can they get hold of you?
And if you want to get hold of me, I am Western Signalman on YouTube, on Instagram, westernsignalmanoutlook.com. And don't forget that together we also have the Model Rail Replacement Podcast Instagram account. So come find us on there, message us on there if you want to, any ideas, anything you'd think we might be interested in. And also, if you want to contact us by email, it's Model Rail RP, that's Romeo Papa, at outlook.com. And with that, we'll sign off. So I'll say, hopefully, we've been entertaining, informative, and have replaced your model railway, if only just for a little bit. I've been James, and with me has been Sam. Good night.
This service terminates here. Please ensure you take all of your personal belongings with you.